John chapter 11 verses 1 to 45. I am the resurrection and the life, says the Lord. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. Now a man was ill, Lazarus from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who had anointed the Lord with perfumed oil. His feet with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus who was ill. So the sisters sent word to him saying, Master, the one you love is ill. When Jesus heard this, he said, This illness is not to end in death, but is for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was ill, he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. Then after this he said to his disciples, Let us go back to Judea. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just trying to stone you and you want to go back there. Are there not 12 hours in a day? If one walks during the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks at night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. He said this, and then told them, Our friend Lazarus is asleep. But I am going to awaken him. So the disciples said to him, Master, if he is asleep, he will be saved. But Jesus was talking about his death, while they thought that he meant ordinary sleep. So then Jesus said to them clearly, Lazarus has died. I was not there, that you may believe. Let us go to him. So Thomas, called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, Let us also go to die with him. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, only about 2 miles away. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him. But Mary sat at home. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, Your brother will rise. Martha said to him, I know he will rise, in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Lord. I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world. When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary secretly, saying, The teacher is here and is asking for you. As soon as she heard this, she rose quickly and went to him. For Jesus had not yet come into the village but was still where Martha had met him. So when the Jews who were with her in the house comforting her saw Mary get up quickly and go out, they followed her, presuming that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come with her weeping, he became perturbed and deeply troubled, and said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Sir, come and see. And Jesus wept. So the Jews said, See how he loved him. But some of them said, Could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have done something so that this man would not have died? So Jesus, perturbed again. It was a cave, and a stone lay across it. Jesus said, Take away the stone. Martha, the dead man's sister, said to him, Lord, by now there will be a stench, he has been dead for 4 days. Jesus said to her, Did I not tell you that if you believe you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. And Jesus raised his eyes and said, Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me. But because of the crowd here I have said this, that they may believe that you sent me. And when he had said this, a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, tied hand and foot with burial bands. And his face was wrapped in a cloth. So Jesus said to them, Untie him and let him go. Now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what he had done began to believe in him. John's Gospel is the only one that tells this story. Lazarus is mentioned only twice, here in chapter 11 and again in chapter 12. We know from this reading that Mary, the sister of Lazarus, was the one who anointed Jesus' feet with the perfumed oil. We have all heard about Thomas, also known as Didymus. He refused to believe his fellow apostles when they told him that Jesus had appeared to them in the upper room following his crucifixion. He is often portrayed as an unbeliever, but he certainly wasn't. Oh, yes, his human thinking wouldn't allow him to believe his fellow apostles. After all, how many people have you known who have been resurrected from the dead and reappeared? Looking beyond his humanity, we see a man of faith and courage who overcame his natural fear of death, and strongly believed in Jesus and his mission. Verse 16, So Thomas, called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, Let us also come. In today's reading we see Thomas as a believer so strong in his faith that he was willing to die for his belief in Jesus. Modern-day Bethany, a village on the lower eastern slope of the Mount of Olives, about 2 miles east of Jerusalem. Bethany is on the road to Jericho. It was near enough to Jerusalem and the disciples to be in danger, but far enough away to be safe. When Jesus heard of Lazarus' sickness, he knew that it would lead to death, but it also provided a teachable moment that proved the glory and power of God. Lazarus did die, but was Jesus wrong in not going earlier? No. Lazarus, like Jairus' daughter and the widow's son, had given Jesus the opportunity to demonstrate his power over death. Eventually all three, Lazarus, Jairus' daughter and the widow's son, would experience a mortal death again. In the warm climate of Palestine, a dead body would decompose quickly, so the dead often buried on the same day as death. 4 days places Lazarus well beyond what anyone might call a near-death case. It was quite natural for Martha, the older sister, to be the first to go out and to meet Jesus. In addition, she was the active person, who had busily prepared Jesus a meal, was more contemplative, and remained at home in mourning. John 11 verse 21. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Martha was making both a complaint and a plea. She did not realize, understand, or dare to hope that Jesus would ask God to give Lazarus back his physical life and be returned to his family. Despite their pain and sorrow, their faith in Jesus did not waver. Haven't we all been upset with God because he hasn't answered our prayer when we asked him to? Does God answer every prayer? Does God care about our prayers? In Psalm 138 verse 3, we read, When I cried out, you answered, you strengthened my spirit. Luke 11 verse 10, For everyone who asks, receives, and the one who seeks, finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Colossians 2:13, And even when you were dead in transgressions and the uncircumcision of your flesh, he brought you to life along with him, having forgiven us all our transgressions. It took Saint Monica 25 years of prayer before Augustine became a true believer who followed Christ. She prayed with persistence, and untiringly, and then God, like a good father, answered her prayers. Don't forget, the answer to your prayer may be no, or not at this time. Your prayers always need to comply with the laws of the Lord. Psalm 119 verse 59, I have examined my ways and turned my steps to your decrees. Don't forget, God has a global picture of past, present and future events which may affect your prayers. Isaiah 55 verse 8, For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says